welcome back to the Screensavers. I'm Leo Laporte. Coming up this half hour, we're going to show you how to clean up your registry. It's about time. And Scott Harriet shows us how to be annoying. That should be easy. If you visited arcade parlors in the early 80s, you might have come across this game, Dragon's Lair, the first arcade game based on traditional cell animation and, frankly, responsible for taking millions of quarters from would-be knights and maidens. To tell us a little more about this significant contribution to gaming history, its inventor, Rick Dyer. We're so pleased to have you. And I got
thank you.
say Roger has just been all over himself. He's so excited to have you in here. We all spent quite a bit of money on Dragon's Lair.
Well, I think, first of all, I want to thank you for spending that money, because I wouldn't be here, and Don and Gary and the rest of our team, if it wasn't for you.
That's cool.
And all the kids.
Well, you mentioned Don and Gary, and a little bit we're going to talk to Don Bluth and Gary Oldman, who are animators, who are the people who kind of brought this to life. This is Don, and anybody who saw The Secret of NIMH or any of his movies will recognize this animation style. How did you come up with the idea, Rick? Because at that time, I mean, we were in 1983. I mean, we were really, it was Battle Zone and Asteroids. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I was a combination of two things. One, the laser disc had just come onto the scene,
right.
And as soon as I saw that, I said, wow. Because we had been trying to figure out a way. We were calling it an electronic book. We were trying to find a way to push the entertainment from little dots and squiggles of the Pong and Pac-Man.
Which is where we were at back in those days, yeah.
And my wife and I went to see a film called The Secret of NIMH, and I was just blown away.
Yeah.
And I pointed to the screen. I said, that's who I want to animate Dragon's Lair. And
that's pretty cool that you actually got him.
What was amazing was I called him the next day. Don actually answered the phone, and they came out to our studios to look at it.
That's so cool.
And I think they didn't believe that you could do things like that.
Did you have to come up with special technology that allowed you to move around on the laser disc and choose decision paths and move through it like that? We
not only had to come up with special technology, we had to design the computer, the board, the hardware, everything. None of it existed, so we had to make it all.
But you saw, when you saw the Laserdisc, a way to have a lot of video and be able to move random access through the video, yeah?
It was not only that, but we knew that we were in a race with other companies.
Atari's got to be doing this, right?
Yeah, and that was the way we saw it, and so and we knew that we had better be first.
What was the reaction when people first saw this? Did they immediately say, yeah, that's it, or did they go, hey, well, I don't know. I mean, this is a big departure here.
What happened was I got a phone call from our producer when we first went out for public testing. He said, come over here now. and I said, what's the matter? And he said, get over here now. So I got in my car, drove over to the El Monte Golf Land, and when I got in there, I just said, my gosh.
Was it just long lines?
There were people. There must have been 100, 150 people, and that was kind of like it had a top monitor. It was kind of like an analogy would be moths being drawn to the light.
Yeah, yeah.
These people. Oh. And when I went up to the machine, there was just a row of quarters all the way across. They put up velvet ropes, and I called our partner in San Diego, who was also testing it, and before I said a word, he said, I know, Rick, the same thing is happening here.
So exciting.
And that's when we realized that this wasn't just going to be another game.
I don't know if people, because if you weren't there in 1983, you don't, first of all, there's a couple of things you got to remember. Arcades were huge. But the games we were playing in arcades were extremely primitive compared to anything we've seen today. You look at this now, and you're comparing it, and it compares well with Quake 3 and all the current games. But this, we're going to talk about.
It's going to be fun.
Just kind of the whole notion of gaming, where it's going, where it's been, and the story of Dragon's Lair. By the way, this is the Dragon's Lair DVD. You can now play it at home with a remote control, and it's pretty much the same thing as the arcade one.
Just use the remote control from your DVD movie player.
What fun. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. If you want to know more of the history of Dragon's Lair 3D, you check out the Screensavers.com, and Don Bluth and Gary Oldman join us right after this. Stay right here. It's going to be fun.
If you're searching for something on your computer, make sure your desktop is selected and hit F3 for the Find box. Then start searching.
One of the keys to the success of Dragon's Lair was its incredible graphics, incredible for that time, but it still looks great. Instead of colored blips and blocky screen characters, you were treated to a full screen animation. Not very different from what you'd see on a movie screen. Joining us now, the two men responsible for that work, Don Bluth and Gary Oldman. It's great to have all three of you here, and here we are. It feels like the 20th anniversary, right? It almost is. 19 years that you started doing, and a sequel's coming out now. Rick was telling me $181 million raised by the 131
over the whole period of time. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty amazing. So let's pick it up from your end, Don.
Okay.
So Rick calls you. He says, "I want to do a video game."
And I said, I don't know anything about video games.
Yeah.
And I can't even play video games. But he says, I'll walk you through this. Because I'm the worst. Dirk going into the castle to play all those dangers in there. It's like me going into a computer. I mean, this But he said, I can walk you through it. He said, all it really is it's a little knight that goes into a castle that has a lot of booby traps.
Right.
And each one of those is a threat. And then what you have to do is figure out how to resolve the threat. And we make a story out of this, but we give the knight some kind of personality so that it's really a story, not just, fight.
And that was a huge breakthrough. There was no personality in video games up to that point.
No, you know what? The hard part is to try and get teenage boys to watch animation because they've sort of left that in the nursery.
Right. They want the action.
They want the action. Yeah.
This game was actually the breakthrough for that, to get teenagers to watch animation again.
And it's huge again. In fact, it's in the teenage culture, anime and animation in general is absolutely huge.
Still a tough sell.
Is it really?
It is a hard sell.
Because they think it's for kids.
It's still,
But actually, one thing that I'm pretty excited about is, believe it or not, my son, who's now 12, I purposely never showed him Dragon's Lair.
You were holding out on him.
And just a couple months ago, I let him. I never told you guys about this.
No.
But I let him try out the new Dragon's Lair 3D, and he goes, "Dad, this is amazing. Who did this?"
Where'd this come from? Your old dad. I'm not so square as you thought, am I?
Yeah, and he likes the game, and he's 12, so that's
really neat.
encouraging.
You never let your son watch the original?
No.
That's amazing.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now, what were the challenges? I mean, here you are. You guys are filmmakers. You're used to controlling the story absolutely, having a linear beginning to end story. Was it a little bit daunting to think of, gee, the guy could go, could go in different directions? And things
Well, actually, if you watch Dragon's Lair, it's really a linear
It is
game.
pretty linear,
It's
yeah.
You watch a piece of film, and if you make the right decision, either sword or joystick,
Right.
what happens is you get to watch the next piece of film,
Right.
and so on until you get through it. And there's
Right.
only about 15 minutes of animation, so I don't know what all the fuss is about.
It's really just a short film.
It was a different approach to editing now. It really
How
was.
so?
Well, I mean, you're making what is a branching continuity, so it's going all over.
Well,
the
that's what I'm
place. Took a
thinking,
long time
isn't
just to figure out what the flow was going to be.
Right, where this has to go here or, and that's...
It was a puzzle.
But
you
you know
had
what,
to actually draw it up. Don drew what he called his flowchart. It rolled out to be 18
Do you still
feet
do
long.
cell animation for something like this? How do you do this?
Oh, no. Oh, no, that's dead.
That's ancient history.
Well, people still call it that, Don.
They call it
What is it? How do you do
It
this?
just means, we call it 2D these days. It means that you're just drawing the drawings and everything like that.
Do you do it on a computer or
No,
do
you do it on a piece of paper.
and you shoot it?
And then you scan it in.
You scan it.
Those
Okay,
words
so
are
that's
important,
changed. You don't take pictures of it anymore. You
For the
scan
last-
You
it.
scan it
The last
in.
6 years, we haven't seen a camera.
And,
No kidding.
And then you color it in there, and then you composite it in there. You put
Right.
it with the backgrounds where it used
Is
to
it any different doing Dragon's Lair than doing a regular feature animated
It
film?
wasn't for us.
No.
It's the
Same
same thing.
technique.
It's a real
Same thing.
challenge. Same technique's been in there for 70 years.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing really I think is a big difference is Dragon's Lair was about stopping every nanosecond to give the player a chance
Right.
to see the rest of the film.
Right.
But
Right.
it's about a character.
Right.
And it's a character who's...
Ultimately, that's what makes a movie or not, right?
Right.
You gotta have character. You gotta have story.
And Dirk is a coward.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go in there. He doesn't want to save that girl, but he likes the girl.
He likes the girl. In fact, he just got the girl, right?
Everybody likes the girl.
So let me ask you a little bit. I was talking before the show with Rick a little bit, and this is an issue I think for a lot of people, is these classic old games really are the beginning of a whole new art form. Just as the early silent films were the beginning of film, the early Walt Disney animations were the beginning, Steamboat Willie, the beginning of a whole art form. Do you worry that we're going to start to lose these old games? I mean, this is...
You know, Leo, something that's really, really hard for me nowadays, because I watch the world more turn into computers.
Yeah.
I watched animation. Instead of drawing it nowadays, they build models on computers and everything, and it gets more and more towards the real.
Yeah.
But there's something just fantastic about going into a cartoon world.
Absolutely.
And being in there.
Absolutely.
And I think the more you go towards the real, the more you lose that fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw a film recently, which I won't name, but they went as real as they could go.
Yeah.
And so I got lost. I mean, the story wasn't
That's
great.
been the trend in CG, what they call CGI,
Yeah.
computer-generated imaging, is that to make it look like real people. I guess they want to eventually, they don't have to pay the mega salaries to the superstars,
Yeah,
but
but you're going to pay mega bucks
to the animators. Somebody's going to make the money somewhere.
Well, we've always said over the years, you know, what the business is caricature. And nobody knows what that word means, so look it up.
Yeah.
But if caricature is that one of those things what you look at things in real life and then you figure out a way to push it so far and exaggerate it so much that someone says, I get it, but I didn't get it when I saw it in the real world. So you have to create things that resonate in our own lives, things we've seen before. Things, you know, that are part of our experience.
There haven't been a lot of games done like this since then. No, this really created a genre that was itself.
That's right.
And nothing else.
And one of the things that we're doing now, 18 years later, we're finally doing a sequel to Dragon's Lair. And I guess there'd be I was mentioning to you, there's an analogy, maybe it's like the Star Wars of the video game industry.
People have been waiting 18 years.
And there's finally going to be a sequel. But what's kind of fun right now is that we are melding the 2D and the 3D into the world. We're actually blending the two.
Wow. But I have a feeling that one of the main reason you don't see a lot of these is there aren't a lot of people like Don and Gary who could do this. I mean, this is, or who'd be willing to do this. This is a very specialized art, and especially to put this in a computer
We weren't
context.
really sure what it was going to be. In fact, what Rick was just alluding to is what we're doing with the 3D version is using Toon Shader on the main character so the character still looks like a 2D character.
They're still flat, but you're giving them a little...
It's completely 3D and completely live. So you can control the character, go in any direction, back him up, make him...
Well, that's one thing that's changed. We now have the computer power to do this in real time and render it. And that's very different. And this is all pre-rendered in effect. These are film images that exist, and you just load them in sequence as you play the game.
It's a memory game.
But,
where the new game
Kind of a fun thing, though, is since Rick came to us and said, let's make a 3D game of Dragon's Lair, Gary and I said, you mean there's an audience still out there that really likes it? Like we were So why don't we make a movie? So we've gotten ourselves very busy in writing a script.
That'd be wonderful.
Getting a movie to happen.
That'd be
It'll
wonderful.
be a 2D movie, maybe with some 3D environments. And
How do you guys work? Do you write the script more, Gary, and you do the animators?
The other way around.
The other way around. You write the script, and you do the drawing.
I'm a production guy.
Yeah.
No, I'm a production guy.
Production. So you get the animators together. And that's good.
I frame the house, he decorates it.
Do you still do it here in the States?
Oh,
or?
yeah.
Because for a while, a lot of animation was being farmed out.
Well, we were actually overseas for a while.
You were in Ireland,
we
right?
We were in Ireland for 8 years.
Well, as a matter of fact, last summer, Gary and Don were honored by the animation industry Lifetime Achievement Award.
That means you're going to die soon.
I'm so sorry. What a terrible thing. Your wife is going, oh my gosh, what happened?
But anyway, I got to read not the latest script that they've got, but the next one back, and in my opinion is it's probably the best script Don's ever written.
That's really
That's going to be fun.
I want the art form of animation is, of course, it is eternal, and it's a wonderful art form, and no matter how incredible they can do CGI, we'll always have drawings. From the cave drawings on, we're always going to have that. It's never going to go away. You guys are the masters of that. To marry it with what we love here, which is computers and gaming, is just fabulous. I want to see many, many more games like this, and I hope you guys will do it, because...
Shall we?
Why not? All right. It's so great to have all three of you. Thank you very much for coming in. Rick Dyer, the creator of Dragon's Lair, Don Bluth and Gary Oldman, the filmmakers who helped did the animation behind it. 18 years later, we're still talking about Dragon's Lair. How many billions of people did you say you figure?
I figure about 250 million.
Quarter of a billion, 250 million people.
I think one of the reasons why Dragon's Lair has sold and never stopped selling is basically Dirk doesn't talk.
You never get sick of him.
You can understand his body language. You can understand
he's a real character. That's what makes it.
Yeah.
I want to see more of him, and I know you do too. If you're interested in taking cell animation and making it more powerful in the digital world, surf your way over to the Screensavers.com. We got a great write-up, Gary, about changing the face of cell animation and how cell animation has changed over the years and is continuing to change. It's great stuff. Join us, won't you, at Screensavers.com.